It's a convergence of crises that should be dominating every front page and every cabinet room. Iran has bombed a major UAE oil facility and announced plans to seize Emirati ports. A South Korean cargo ship has exploded in the Strait of Hormuz, and back home in Australia, 13 individuals with Islamic State links are about to touch down in Melbourne and Sydney, while the government offers the public little more than vague reassurances about case management. These are not isolated events. They are connected threads in a fraying global security picture, and the question of whether our leaders understand what they're dealing with has never been more urgent. Joining me now are Sophia Reeves, our economics and markets editor, and James Chen, our geopolitical analyst. Sophia, let me start with you. Is Iran's attack on Fujairah a genuine strategic escalation, or is this still within the bounds of manageable regional tension?
Thanks, Emma. Let me be blunt. This is not manageable regional tension. This is Iran doing what Iran has always intended to do, which is assert control over Gulf energy infrastructure using the language of missiles and drones because that is the only language the regime speaks fluently. The Fujairah oil industry zone is not some obscure installation. It is the second largest bunkering hub on the planet. When you set that ablaze and simultaneously announce plans to take control of Emirati ports, you are not conducting a diplomatic signal. You are conducting a strategic land grab dressed up in military hardware. Pete Hegseth is right to invoke Project Freedom and right to call on South Korea to join, because what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz affects Seoul's energy imports every bit as much as it affects Sydney's petrol prices. The question I keep coming back to is this: where was the deterrence? The Biden administration spent 4 years treating Iran as a negotiating partner, unfreezing assets, offering concessions, and the result is a regime that now feels confident enough to bomb allied infrastructure in broad daylight. You cannot appease a revolutionary theocracy into moderation. It has never worked. It will never work. And frankly, if the international community doesn't respond with genuine military and economic consequences in the next 30 days, Tehran will conclude that Fujairah was just the opening bid.
But Sophia, the counter-argument is surely that military escalation in the Gulf risks exactly the kind of wider regional conflagration that nobody wants. Crude hits $130, inflation spikes, and suddenly the cure is worse than the disease. And James, what's your take on this? Is the economic risk of escalation actually the bigger threat here?
Well, look, Sophia is absolutely right that appeasement has failed. But here's what I think she's glossing over. The economic architecture of a military response in the Gulf is extraordinarily complex, and the idea that Project Freedom can be assembled into a functional deterrent coalition in the time frame this crisis demands is frankly optimistic to the point of being unrealistic. We're talking about 21 million barrels a day flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. The 2019 Abqaiq attack knocked 5% of global supply offline in a single weekend and sent prices up 10% in a day, and that was a more limited strike than what we're seeing now. South Korea, Japan, India, yes, they have skin in the game, but coalitions take months to negotiate, and Iran is moving now. The real risk economically isn't the Iranian attack itself. It's the uncertainty premium that gets baked into energy markets for the next 6 months, regardless of what happens militarily. Insurance premiums on Gulf shipping are already going to spike. That feeds directly into consumer inflation. And you cannot divorce that from the political volatility it generates in Western democracies that are already stretched.
I hear what James is saying, but with respect, that misses the point entirely. The economic cost of not responding is higher. Every time Iran acts without consequence, it raises the probability of the next attack. And the next attack. You want to talk about insurance premiums? Wait until Iran decides to physically interdict the strait itself, rather than just blow up a port. That is what you're enabling with a purely economic calculus that keeps finding reasons not to act. Look, Douglas Murray said it best. The West has a pathological inability to name its enemies and respond to them decisively. We're watching that pathology play out in real time. Iran is not confused about its objectives. It wants regional hegemony. It wants to control Gulf energy. And it has calculated, based on 2 decades of Western dithering, that the cost of pursuing those objectives is acceptable. The only thing that changes that calculation is credible, demonstrated force, not coalition-building workshops. Force.
Here's what I want to know, and this is the question I think Australian viewers particularly need to hear answered. While we're debating the Gulf, 13 IS-linked individuals are about to land in this country, and the government's idea of reassurance is careful case management. James, where do you see this going, and should Australians be worried?
The way I see this playing out, this becomes a political firestorm within weeks of arrival, not months. The Albanese government has not adequately explained the vetting process, the legal conditions, or the monitoring architecture. And the moment there is any incident at all, even something relatively minor, those vague assurances become a political liability of the first order. European governments said exactly the same things about IS returnees. Germany, France, Belgium, they all said, we have processes. And the data from European counterterrorism agencies consistently shows that the reintegration and monitoring challenges were underestimated by a significant margin. If current trends in that European experience apply here, Australia is walking into a problem it has not adequately prepared for.
Here's what concerns me most. It's not even necessarily the immediate security risk from these specific individuals, though that is real and should not be minimized. It's the precedent. Once you establish that IS-linked individuals can return to Australia under vague case management frameworks, you have set a template. You have told every future returnee, every future legal challenge, every future advocacy group that the pathway exists and the government will follow it. Tony Burke talking about careful management is not a security policy. It's a political formula designed to get through the next news cycle. And I'll say this directly. If Andrew Bolt and Pete Hegseth have been raising these alarms consistently, and the government has been consistently dismissing them as alarmist, and then something goes wrong, the accountability question is going to be devastating. The trajectory here is not reassuring.
Sophia Reeves, James Chen, two genuinely different views on tactics, but I suspect a shared sense of unease about where all of this is heading. One thing is absolutely certain tonight. Someone in Canberra's Home Affairs Department and someone in Tehran's military command are both betting that the West blinks first. History is watching to see who's right.